Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dropping the Gloves. I'm glad you're joining us today because it's an interesting day, Tim. It's like an annual event these days, but it's so bittersweet. Do you ever feel that way with the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because this is the big story. This is what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we'll get to the Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars, but right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs played last night and they were eliminated in Game 7 by the Florida Panthers. Don't you feel like it's bittersweet talking about this because you want selfishly I like when they do bad, but the core of me wants them to do well because it's just been so many years of this and you want it to change. Do you feel the same way, or do you just love the chaos that is their team?
I love the chaos, and if I'm sad at all, I'm sad that it's going to be over. I'm sad that I don't get to like this annual thing we do every year. It's so great. Ryan Whitney tweeted last night. He said, "There's the Leafs in Game 7 before the game is the best content in hockey," and he's totally right. There's nothing like it. The highs and lows, and we sat down to watch the game last night because usually Julie and I Sunday night we're watching our shows, our HBO and all that. I'm like, listen, I really need to watch this game, and she sat and watched with me, and I was trying to explain like the background leading into this, like the 7, 8 years of disappointments, the pending free agents. They finally get a chance to do it at home. Like there's so many storylines, and she was into it. And if you're like us that enjoys the failures and disappointments of the Leafs, you could not have asked for something better last night. It was absolutely amazing.
It's exactly what they do, which is gratifying, and it's like, okay, we were right because they play with your emotions. Our last episode, they had just got demolished from Game 5, and that followed up an absolute stinker in Game 4. And so I proclaimed, yeah, there's no way they win in Game 6 based on what's been going on the last few games. And then they go to Florida, they go on the road, and they should get shellacked in Game 6, Tim. They have no business winning that game, and they play a great game. Joseph Woll plays fantastic. They win 2-0, and all of a sudden, they plant that seed again of maybe they're different. Maybe they're going to get it different this year. And this is the frustrating part with this team. And this is why they always just like suck us back in. It's like a team that goes on a run at the end of the year and they win the last 10 games. It's like, oh man, let's roll it back next year. We're going to be good. Buffalo Sabres do that quite a bit. Vancouver Canucks have done that in years past. It's like, well, no, we can't do that again. Like they're going to be good. We can't change anybody. And then they start and they're terrible. That's what the Leafs did in the series, Tim. And it's frustrating because then you show up for Game 7 and they had a brief respite in the second period, maybe the end of the first, where they have a little bit of a pushback. It was embarrassing, top to bottom, absolutely embarrassing for those guys.
Yeah, we're going to do a kind of a period by period analysis here and just break down some of the key parts of the game. But before we do that, I want to read this it's a long tweet from friend of the show, Eric Engels, who covers the Canadians. And I really like the way that he put it. So just bear with me. I think it's worth listening to. Talking about right after the game. He said, "You often need to lose first to understand how to win. You often need to lose more than once to truly understand what it takes. But to habitually lose this way doesn't shape a future win. It just creates the type of trauma that can't be overcome. How else do you explain those Game 5 and 7 performances from this core? The trauma they've experienced together overtook them, and that's not to take anything away from the Panthers. Objectively, the Leafs were actually different this season. Their commitment to playing the right way was stronger than at any point over the past decade, and anyone watching them could see that. But watching those last 2 home games only confirmed their past trauma is unsheddable without ripping apart that core. And whoever decides will have to ask themselves if losing Marner and Tavares will be enough." There's a lot there, and we'll get into the game, but I thought that was well put. And yeah, you could just see that whole, like, once the started to slip away, it was gone, and it was never coming back.
Yeah, and you can tell they just shrink back into their shell, and they're here we go again. We're the same old Leafs that are going to blow it because everybody 1-0 is fine, and we can go through the game. So maybe we just go through the game because Eric Engels, it's very poetic, it's very dramatic, maybe more so than I would give the Leafs credit for because I don't think it was a different season. for the most part. This is what they do. They add toughness, and then they have that edge, and then they go into the playoffs and it's completely gone. And then they get waxed when the lights are the brightest. That's what I texted Steve Dangle last night. I was watching his stream, him losing his marbles while I was watching the game. I'm like, Steve, this is nothing new. These guys stink when the lights are the brightest, and he had a good chuckle at that. But let's go through the game, because this is Game 7, Tim. This is it. You're at home. This is a time to change the narrative of your team. You know, the last 7 years you can throw out the window if you dethrone the defending Stanley Cup champions. You're coming off a huge win in Florida. You should be feeling pretty good. Austin Matthews got off the schneid and scored. The pressure is off. All the pressure is on the Florida Panthers. And then they do this. They show up in the first period. And it's like, what the hell? Like, I touched on this last show. How do you not get up for this game? It's crazy.
Yeah, so the Panthers came out very hot in the first. Absolute domination for, more than 10 minutes. The ice was tilted, as they say. The Leafs barely touched the puck. It was just relentless pressure, the forecheck, quality chances. There's a couple of bounces that could have gone in. Like, it was very close. And Joseph Woll was letting up a lot of rebounds, which will come back later in the game because that was a huge problem throughout the game. And the Panthers actually had, this is a crazy stat among many that we'll talk about today. The first 25 shot attempts of the game came from the Panthers. It was insane. It was just, we all watched it, right? But Woll and the Leafs, especially the defense, weathered the storm. They get the rebounds out. They made the saves they had to make. They kept the puck out of the net. And then you start to think, if you're an optimist about the Leafs, okay, they've weathered the storm. Maybe they can handle this. Maybe the balance, the scales will start to balance a little bit. They're in this game. And then things start to tilt the other way in the second half of the first period. They don't get their first shot on net until almost 12 minutes into the game. But from that point on, the Leafs were the better team for the second half of the first.
Yeah.
A lot of chances, a couple of breakaways, some huge saves by Bobrovsky. And at the end of the first period, it's 0-0. And the Leafs are getting, I think, in my opinion, well-deserved applause and praise from the fans. And you think, okay, we're in this. We saw the best the Panthers had to offer. We didn't let anything in. 2 more periods to go. It's anyone's game at this point. And then everything changed.
Well, yeah, you go into the locker room and you're darn right they're feeling pretty good. Because like you said, the Panthers threw it all out there. And I've been in those locker rooms. I know what it's like. You feel pretty good. You're going, fellas, this is our game. That's all they got. And that's what they're saying. Like, that's it. They made their push. Now it's our turn. We have to keep going. We have to keep going. But shame on Craig Berube and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't want to gloss over that. To not have a shot attempt, to not have a pushback at all for the first 10 minutes of the game, Game 7, it's I don't know a word to put on it. It's just embarrassing. And good for Paul Maurice. Game 7 is a different animal than in Game 1, 2, 3. You throw everything at the net. Anything. Like, guys are gripping their sticks a little bit tighter. They're back checking harder. Chances are harder to come by. So you just throw everything at the net and something will go in. And he's been there and done that. They won a Stanley Cup. They know how to play the game. And it didn't seem like the Toronto Maple Leafs, they weren't on their toes. They weren't playing hard, but they didn't get that message. They were still trying to do what the Toronto Maple Leafs do. So it's just like, how do you not change? But they were still flying high from Florida up 2-0, or they won 2-0. I get that. But man, to come out and throw a stinker. But anyways, they put it together at the end of the first period. They go into the locker room feeling real good. They should come out, start of the second period, and they should be flying. The exact opposite happened, Tim.
Yeah, and it started with Seth Jones, who had a 2-on-1, and there was a lot of criticism for the way that Brandon Carlo played this, where he gave Seth Jones a lane through the net. So he scores, and then Lundell scores, and then Gadjevich scores, which is a really cool play. And then Panthers basically have 3 goals in 6.5 minutes, and just like that, the life was out of the building. It was quiet. Even the boos, which came out, weren't sustained. It was dead. I think the Leafs were getting outskated. They were losing puck battles. They start to get frustrated, like you said. They're holding their stick tight. They can't create any sustained offense. They're turning the puck over because they're trying to do too much. They're losing the puck because they're trying to do too little. It looked like a boys against men situation. And this is where it all starts to fall apart on the team. Because at one point, and to your point about how do you not get up for this game, at one point we were more than halfway through the second, which is more than halfway through the game, and the Leafs had 9 total shots on net. Like, it's unspeakable. And then there's this clip coming around during one of the TV timeouts, Mitch Marner telling his team to wake the F up. He's screaming at his bench. They're down 3-0. He's not seeing anything he likes. And at this point in the game, Marner had obviously no points. He had one shot on net, and he has 2 points in 6 career game 7. So if you're on the bench and you're Chris Tanev, like you're Max Pacioretty, what's your reaction to Marner yelling like that, of all people?
What the camera doesn't catch is all the guys just held up mirrors to Mitch Marner when they yelled at him. Just like, look in the mirror, bud. That's what they think. They said, really, Mitch Marner, you're telling us to wake the F up? Like, I get what Marner's trying to do. He's trying to fire up the team. He's a leader on this team, one of the veteran guys, but it falls flat because of what you've done in your history. Again, and that's the problem with these guys now, is they don't have that foundation. They don't have that solid base to say, I've been there, done that. I've done this. I've led this team. No, when times have gotten tough, you've cut bait and you haven't shown up. So for you to come in now when the time is the toughest and to yell at us and to get after us, it's like, stop. That doesn't resonate with us. You haven't earned that. You don't get to say that to us, especially for those guys that you mentioned who have been around and do have a leg to stand on. It would mean something if Chris Tanev came around and said, let's go. This isn't good enough. It doesn't mean anything when it's Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. These guys don't have that legacy. They have a history of failure, not showing up. I saw one funny stat where Jones and Marchand now have more Game 7 points than Marner and Matthews do in their whole Leafs career for the Panthers in one game. I think they have like 3, 4 points, 5 points combined, and Marner and Matthews have the same. So it's a joke that he's even saying that. He's frustrated. I think it's honest with him coming back to the bench. He's not doing it for show, but you don't have a leg to stand on at this point. This is it. This is your legacy. Your legacy is this. When times get the toughest, you guys just don't show up, and that's a tough legacy to have, Tim.
Yeah, so the Panthers score, and then they score again, and then they score again, and here we go. And then they had another that I thought should have been a goal, the Seth Jones thing. I didn't think it was a quick emotion. I thought that should have counted, but it gets called back. It's 3-0, and they're just dominating the play. And you're like, okay, if we're looking at Matthews and Marner, but it's the whole team, obviously. It's like, would it kill you to just like get the puck in deep, drop the shoulder, drive to the net, mix things up? Make contact with Bobrovsky, put them on their heels a little bit. Like what the Panthers do so well, and some of these other teams, like show some passion. And they're not doing it. They're just trying to create offense, trying to do the extra pass, and nothing's working. And the Panthers are just suffocating. And here's the next stat, which is just mind-boggling. Through 2 periods, the Leafs allowed 75 shot attempts, which was the most by any team this season through 2 periods, regular season and playoffs. Regular season, hundreds of games. And it's like, this is the biggest moment of their career. This is the biggest stage, and this is what you deliver at home in Game 7. It's unconscionable.
How many minutes are in a period?
20.
2 periods, 40 minutes. It's almost 2 shot attempts a minute. That's incredible. I think we have to yes, Toronto should have had a little more life. You have to give props to the Florida Panthers. They to come out and to just shake off a Game 6 where they didn't really show up like they did in Game 5, and to just strap on the boots, Tim, and do what they did is very impressive. Hostile crowd coming into Toronto. All the pressure is on them. The defending champions, are they going to let this 3-2 lead slip away? And they just dominate. And they dominate in the way that they know how. We throw pucks to the net. We get bodies in front of their goaltender. We muck it up on the boards. And we just grind you out in the offensive zone. Shift after shift after shift till you don't want to play anymore. And that's what looked like happened. Once they got to 3-1, the Toronto looks like they just died. Or 3-0, excuse me. Toronto looked like they had no interest in playing in that game. The boos were just cascading around that rink. And the average price of a ticket, I'm just guessing, in the upper bowl, like the nosebleed section, $300, $400, $500 for those tickets. Lower bowl, thousands.
More, yeah.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. And just imagine you go to this game, you think it's going to be the greatest hockey night of your life. Because people my age and your age, you've never seen them go further than the second round. They haven't been played in June their whole franchise's career. Like, that's it. The whole franchise has not played in June once. And they lay this egg. And you're booing your team. And it's 3-0. They're booing, Tim. It's incredible. But just like the Leafs do, the little microcosm that this game is in the third period, they do it throughout their season. They did it in the playoffs. They give you a little bit of hope. They start the third period. Max Domi has he been a friend of the show?
No.
What a jerk. I think I asked him. He said no. Max Domi, hometown boy, obviously Father Ty, comes in and he scores. Gives them some energy. Early in the third, Tim. That's it. They're going to come back. They're going to do reverse Toronto. They're going to come back and win this game 4-3. And then what happens? Oh, my gosh.
Well, the Panthers do what all the best teams do, is that they answer right away and just take away any momentum you were hoping to build. 47 seconds later, Luostarinen scores, who had a great series, by the way.
Yeah.
He's playing, I think he played like 30 minutes total or something like that. And he has, 4 or 5 points. Like, he was really good. A beautiful deflection off of a slap pass from Brad Marchand, who I don't take this from Woll. Like, Woll, there's nothing he could have done there. It was beautifully executed. And again, the air is sucked out of the building, and this time it's permanent. I think at this point, everyone knew the game was over. The Panthers knew it. The Leafs knew it. The fans knew it. The fans out in Maple Leaf Square knew it. And then a couple minutes later, you got a snipe from Reinhart, 5-1. And this point, it's like ride the clock out, right?
Yeah.
And so the Leafs pull Woll with 4 minutes left. And this is where it kind of starts to get ugly. The clock's ticking down. They have 6 skaters out, no goalie. And then not only are the boos happening, but you're getting jerseys on the ice. And some of them, the first time it happened was during a commercial break or during a TV timeout, whatever. The next one there was one during play.
Yeah.
Marner goes back to collect the puck on a clearing attempt. And then I almost like out of the corner of your eye, I was like, was that a jersey? And it's in like a hat or something too. So it's during live play. It's ugly. And the boos are happening. And it's a bad time, and everyone's miserable, and there's nothing you can do because the Panthers are revelating in it.
The clock can't move fast enough. And I've been in situations like this where you're getting just worked. And it's like, come on, let's go. Let's speed up the clock. No whistles, no breaks. And it's torture for the players. But honestly, they need to sit through that. They need to endure that for what they put these fans through, what they put all those people who showed up to this game through. And to throw a stinker up like this, to be down 5-1 on home ice, and to have no pushback. Max Domi was the only one, really, I saw who was exerting any kind of effort. Austin Matthews it's so weird to not give a crap and to just go out there and to glide and coast and to not play. And Mitch Marner, and we can't let Willie Nylander off the hook as well. He tries all these dipsy doodle plays and to try to be this superstar. It doesn't work in Game 7. And it just falls flat. And Johnny T, can we just put a stamp on his Leafs tenure has been an abject failure? Like, he was supposed to come in and push these guys over the top. He was the veteran guy that was going to lead them. The big catch, what was it, 7 years ago now?
He was terrible. In his prime when he signed.
Yeah. Terrible. They won 2 series. I saw another stat. All the stats are just comically bad. The New York Islanders won more series in Toronto than Johnny T did because they won 2 series, but because of the bubble, the New York Islanders played in Toronto and they won 3 series. So it's just comical that he didn't win any series there. I feel bad for the fans. I was ripping them a little bit last episode because they have this air of confidence and condescending, and they do, because when the Leafs are going good, they talk down on you. But boy, you have to feel for them, Tim, in this moment, because the star players don't give a crap. They're still cashing their paycheck. The owners are just getting money thrown at them by these guys, and they have to endure this to the point where they're throwing jerseys on the ice. That's tough.
Yeah, and I get a lot of joy from the disappointment of the Leafs fans and Maple Leaf Square and all that. But it's fun when it's like an overtime goal and Pastrnak scores off that Hampus Lindholm play. And they all just in that second just die inside. That's the fun stuff. This they didn't even show the Square last night in the broadcast, hardly at all, because there's no fun in watching that slow torture. Yeah. And then, of course, of all people, Brad Marchand, the Leafs killer, the number one enemy of this franchise over the past decade, gets the empty net goal. And he was incredible in the series. I think he had 8 points, which led the whole series in points. He's 37 years old. Him and Seth Jones were the 2 best players in Game 7. and they were the two deadline pickups,
Right.
which is just masterful. And everyone's talking about how good Marshawn was, and why didn't more teams go after him? He could have got more because the Panthers won 2 series. It's going to be a first round pick for the Bruins, which is a price
Nice.
the Panthers will gladly pay. But it was just so much fun to watch those two do what they always do. And Marshy, of all people, is just it's just so poetic and beautiful.
Well, I think let's just start with Seth Jones. I think he's being vindicated with his career because we were all over him, much like everybody else was with the Chicago Blackhawks, and you could tell he wasn't the same player that he is now. He is so confident on that ice with the Panthers. He's running their power play. He's their best defenseman right now, which is scary because they have Ekblad, they have Forsling, they got Mikkola, they have good defensemen, and he has slid in seamlessly, especially when Ekblad went out with that suspension. He's their guy, Tim. Like he is their horse on the back end, and then Marchand doing what he does. You mentioned Luostarinen, you mentioned Lundell. The reason they're having such a great postseason is because of Brad Marchand. He has transformed that third line. And yes, it was good. Last year was really, really solid. It's better this year. Last year they were more of a shutdown line, and they were checking a hardworking line that you could kind of set your clock to. Now they're a threat to score every time they're on the ice. Like they're really, really fun to watch. And when you can have that third line and it doesn't impact your first and second line with Barkov, Reinhart, Bennett, Kachuk. Like Kachuk was super quiet this series.
I don't think he had any points the whole series.
Yeah, didn't even notice him. Same with the Verhage. They were invisible. It was the Luostarinen and Lundell Marchand line that was dangerous, and the Greer Nozick Gadjevic line that did a lot of the work. So it's just a benefit to have Marchand. He's been great, and we knew we would. Like we knew this was going to happen with this guy. He's so good.
It reminds me of like the Coleman Gord, was it Goudreau line for Tampa?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe better. Like it's just what they're doing, and the matchup nightmares is just what they do so well.
Yeah.
So he gets the empty netter, the clock runs out, the buzzer sounds, the game is over, the series is over, and this era of Toronto Maple Leaf hockey is finally over. And this time, and someone pointed this out on Twitter, and they're totally right. There's no more, they got out goalied because someone got hurt or they ran into a hot Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky or Rask or whatever. There's no like, they deserve to win, but this didn't go their way. There's no blaming soft goals. There's no blaming injuries. There's no blaming the refs. It is about the culture. It is about the leadership. It is about the core four. And there's no more denying it. There's no more going around it. And everyone knows there's going to be some major changes this summer.
There has to be. And then the one thing I want to touch on is we talk about good teams and we talk about superstar players. And I often put Mitch Marner in that category with superstar players and Austin Matthews in that category. Have they lost that moniker now? Because arguably, superstar players perform when they need you to perform. That's my biggest critique of the Carolina Hurricanes. They don't have that guy in that moment who can produce. Matthews, Marner, Tavares have not done that. Nylander, to a certain extent, has at times, but why do we just label them as a superstar? Why does Austin Matthews get that kind of benefit of a doubt when he doesn't do it in the playoffs at all? He hasn't. And so I think we have to reevaluate how good these guys are. And listen, the rubber will meet the road with Mitch Marner here in a couple months when July 1st rolls around, and we'll see what his true worth is and what GMs think he's worth, because we'll get to that in a second. But boy, oh boy, I think Toronto has built this team where they're dangerous in the regular season. But let me tell you this. I've been on some really good hockey teams. Very, very good hockey teams with Stanley Cup champions. Good teams are not this inconsistent. They're not this wishy-washy where you go out and get waxed one night and then you play great the next night and then you follow that up by getting just worked the next night. That's not what good teams do, Tim. That's a streaky team. That's a team that's, hot and cold based on their emotions. Good teams are steady as she goes. They're unflappable. Yeah, we lose, but we don't get embarrassed. Yeah, we win, but we're not blowing teams out because we're hot that night. We're just good. You know what I mean? And the Leafs aren't good. They are a very, very solid team. They're too good to lose because they have talented players. But when they play other good teams, their flaws get exposed. And good teams are not this inconsistent. They're not this wishy-washy. They're steady as she goes, like I said. They know how to win. And Toronto, it's so frustrating because you see the pieces, and it's like, it's just them. It's those guys. It's them. All right, what do the numbers say, Tim?
Yeah, I mean the good teams deliver in big moments, and this is kind of like there's some more numbers here. So the Maple Leafs now since 2018 in winner take all games they are 0-7. They've scored 9 goals
Gosh.
in those 7 games. 9 goals in 7 games. They've allowed 28, which is 4 per game. Their power play is 1 for 11. Their save percentage is below 900, and their two superstars Matthew and Marner have 5 points combined in those 7 games. They could have 5 points each, and you wouldn't say that's enough. You would say they need to be better. 5 points combined. And here's again,
Yeah.
just you narrow that down to not just winner take all, but game sevens. 2025, they scored 1 goal. 2024, they scored 1 goal. 2022, they scored 1 goal. 2021, they scored 1 goal. 2019, they scored 1 goal. It's synonymous with choking, with failure, with disappointment, with being small in big moments, and it's going to define the era. I saw people tweeting like, to be honest, I preferred the Kessel era more than this. Like at least like it's just that they didn't tear our hearts out the same way that these groups do. So it's crazy.
Well, and then the whole narrative with Toronto is, oh, it's the goaltending, it's the defense, it's this, it's that. Look at the results. It's the scoring when it's needed. 100%. This is the reason why they haven't been successful. They don't score when you need them to score. Oh, it's the depth. You don't need the depth in Game 7. You need your big guys to score. It just, I think I saw Steve Dangle said Alex Kerfoot had like 6 points in 7 games when they lost to Montreal in 2021. That was your depth scoring. The big guys don't produce. That's the problem. And everybody knows it. But everybody just beats around the bush because they don't want to upset these guys because they go, oh, his contract's going to be up in a couple of years. We want to re-sign him, so let's just make sure he's happy. And that's the root of this. They want to keep these guys. They don't want to upset them, so they let them get away with this crap. The media is complicit on this. We're part of the problem. It's the president. It's the GM. It's the coaches. No one ever said, you guys need to do more. It's because the players hold so much power and they go, oh, Austin Matthews, we got to re-sign him. We got to re-sign him. That was before his last contract. So now it's Mitch Marner. Oh, we want to re-sign him, Mitch. You're doing so great. Everything's so great. Can you please re-sign? They coddled him too much. And now here we are. A waste, Tim. A waste of 8 years. Complete waste. I feel like when Henrik Lundqvist was with the Rangers, they wasted him. They wasted this team. It's just like, it's crazy they've only won 2 series in that amount of time. I won more series than they did. And I'm a bum. Absolute bum. And I played on the Sabres for a long time. I played on the Coyotes. I played on bad teams, and I've won more series than the Toronto Maple Leafs had. Let that sink in. Suck on those ones, Matthews.
Right, and I think the media has a lot to do with it. Where you want to send, like, Matthews needs to go spend a summer living with like one of the old timers and just learning about not just what to say in the PR, but the leadership, the toughness. I wouldn't say Rod the Bod because he's in the league, but a guy like that, you know what I mean?
Wouldn't sink in. Wouldn't. Kids these days, their shit don't stink. They can't learn anything once it's ingrained. You could have this guy follow around Patrice Bergeron and Mark Messier. You could sew his nose to the a-hole of any one of those guys. Nothing would sink in. He would just go, oh man, doesn't my earring look sick, bro? Don't check out my threads. Nothing would sink in because it's too late. It's absolutely too late for all of these guys. They've been coddled. They've been fed that they're the best. They don't know how to change it all. They can maybe back check a little bit. That's it. This is who they are. They will never be a leader on a team that's successful. It never. So yeah, we're going to send him here to work on his leadership. You think anything's going to soak in? Not a chance. We're going to have him shadow Dougie Gilmour. First of all, Gilmour's going to hate it. I know Dougie. And Austin Matthews is going to think, what a waste of time. I'm better than Dougie Gilmour. He never scored 62 goals, this, that, and the other. So yeah, no.
Well, okay, so this is the part we haven't even gotten to arguably the worst part about all this. So show you a quick example. I'll take you back to June 2021. The Colorado Avalanche were just eliminated from the playoffs by the Vegas Golden Knights. Nathan MacKinnon spoke to the press and he said, I'm going into my 9th year next year and I haven't won crap. So this is him talking about blaming himself, taking accountability, saying what you want to hear, and this is disappointment. It's not like he's winning, and that's the difference. He had lost at this point year after year after year, and put it on himself, and he's miserable. He won the cup in his 9th year. He won the cup the very next season after winning this. Here's Austin Matthews last night, asked about what went wrong and why they lost this game. He said, quote, "I thought we had too many passengers." This is a man who had 2 shots on goal last night. He had 1 goal in this entire series. He had 1 point in the last 4 games. He's the highest paid player in the league. He's the captain. And he's saying, I think other guys should have done more. If I had told you this a week ago and said, this is what's going to happen, and Matthews is going to deliver like this and say that, you might believe it because you expect it, but you also would be like, okay, that's a little over the top. There's no way it would happen this egregiously. And here we are.
It's just par for the course, Tim. Honestly, I would say, yeah, that sounds like Austin. This is his first year as captain, by the way. Like, this is his big coming out party. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to shed all those things as preconceived notions you have of me, of not being a leader, of like not caring and this and that, not being able to get my nose dirty. This is his year. And that's what he says after being eliminated. I thought we had too many passengers. Listen, Tim, Zebras ain't changing his spots. I've said that many, many times. And this is it. This is who he is, everybody. He is your captain. He is signed for the next 7 years. Sorry, 4 years?
Yeah, he signed a bridge deal, 4 years.
2028, yeah. So only a few more years, thankfully. But this is your captain. This is who you saddled your horse to. This guy's just, he's unbearable. I don't want to keep bringing it back to me. Johnny Taves, I would take Johnny Taves scoring no points, but just to have his leadership ability. This is not what a captain is supposed to look like, especially for our storied franchise, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs. How does he sleep at night? How does Chris Tanev or any of the other vets not say, really, Austin, passengers? Who were the passengers? Let's look at this roster and say who the heck were passengers on this team, because last time I checked, I thought the 4th line played pretty good. Bobby McMahon, Max Domi, Pat Chiaretti, not bad. Lorenz, Lawton, Yarncroke, not great, but not terrible. The defense played solid. The goaltenders played good. Who were the passengers? It wasn't Matthew Nyes. He tried his heart out. It's just, it's them. They're the problem, but it just passed the buck. It's these damn millennials, no accountability. I've said it enough. I'm going to get a tattoo across my forehead and just point to it. Millennials, you, Tim, you're part of the problem.
So are you. But, and the whole passenger thing, John always likes to gloss over the fact that he is also a millennial.
No one,
barely.
Yeah,
okay. The funny thing is, like, the whole passenger comment, we've heard that before. It always comes from a coach. It's always from a coach who says, hey, you know what? We had a couple of guys show up, not enough. We had some passengers watching and waiting for things to happen. It never comes from a player. It never comes from the captain. And in the moments that it does, it's like the guy that puts up 4 points or scores 2 goals in clutch moments. And he's like, if we got a little more from a couple other guys, he didn't deliver, and he's still looking elsewhere. The whole, like, don't point your finger if your hands aren't clean. It's crazy. And Mitch Marner, by the way, was asked about that comment from Matthews, and he agreed with it. He also agreed that there were too many passengers, who, of course, didn't deliver whatsoever either. And he was asked about his own feelings, and he said he was sad, he was depressed, all of the things. He was asked about his time and his future, and he said he's not ready to talk about that. He was honored to be here and wear the jersey and all this stuff. And then you get the other side of the other locker room. Paul Maurice, the head coach, was said, y'all are going to crucify these guys, and they don't deserve it. Puck went our way tonight. That's it. And I don't think he believes those words that he's saying, but he's trying to take the higher ground, the higher road, right, and be the gentleman and all that. And Brad Marchand, and I love this, he was asked about the Leafs, as he always is, and he said, they've been working and building something really big here for a while, and they were a different brand of hockey this year. They're getting crucified, and I don't think it's justified. Again, kind of a higher road moment, but Steve Danko, who's just so funny, compared that to the big bad wolf saying, hey, you guys don't need bricks. I think the straw house is fine. I think the stick house is fine. Don't fortify this with bricks. We're doing great here. So it's so beautiful, and there's more like it, but it just validates everything we already knew, and nothing has changed.
Yeah, they're this team. It's yeah. Well, we got to regroup. We got to get better depth. We need toughness. We need goaltending. We need defense. We need everything. It's the culture. So what's next? It's much like I'm critical of Steve Yzerman and the Yzer plan, the Shan plan, which was put in place about a decade ago. It's going on 10 years. It's very very close to it. Him, Lou Lamoriello came in. They took over a team that was not great. It was fledgling, kind of no direction, and they stocked it full of young players, high end talent. They brought in some high end free agents. It was a fun team to watch. Nothing's changed. And he said he was going to change his plan. He was asked early in his tenure, like, what does your 5 year plan look like? And he said, it's constantly changing. So I don't know. He has stuck with the same plan, Tim, for his whole tenure there. He hasn't changed anything. It's built around these 5 guys, Morgan Riley included. He's been there for his whole tenure, and try to put some pieces around them. And that's his plan. And it hasn't worked. And so the fact that he hasn't changed any of the core 4 when he's had the opportunity to, when they've been restricted free agents, when he's had chances to trade them, he needs to be fired. I think that's a logical next step. You've had a couple coaches. You had Mike Babcock. You had Sheldon Keefe. Now you have Craig Berube. You've ran through a couple GMs with Kyle Dubas. Now you got Brad Treveling. It's your turn. Like, you need to go. And it was fun, but he needs to be fired right now. I don't know if they have the chutzpah to do it, but he needs to go. He started something, but I didn't think he had the courage enough to get rid of one of those guys to make the team better. He just stuck with his initial all in. These are my 4 guys, and we're going with it. He couldn't change, Tim.
Well, he built the culture and he stood by these guys, and there's just zero accountability. And this is what you get when you've got that, when they know that their jobs are safe and they're going to make their money and whatever. So, we'll talk later on about the offseason and the moves, and is Marner gone, is Tavares gone? There's a whole bunch of free agents that are, and a lot of guys that have no moves and no trades and partials that probably shouldn't have it, including like Yarncroc and some of these other guys. So they're going to have their hands tied. But just if we can answer this succinctly, John, do you see any world where this summer they can make moves that give them a better chance next year than they had this year? Or is this a deeper problem than that?
Oh, yeah, I think there is. I think there is a way. They will have a ton of money to spend. They're in a good spot with the cap. Their defense is signed for next year. They have their goaltenders locked up, and those are the 2 areas that teams covet. I like their goaltenders. If Anthony Stolarz doesn't go down, this is a different series. I think they win this series potentially. I like the backup of Joseph Woll.
They still don't score, though.
Still, but it's a different series if he doesn't go down. I like their defense. I think Tanev, OEL, I like Carlo. McCabe is great. You're going to have the $22 million from Tavares Marner. You're going to have the bump up in cap space. You'll have a lot of money to round out this roster. It's just, who can you bring in? That's the question. What guys are out there? So, yeah, I do think it will be addition by subtraction. I do think this team will be better next year. Matthews and Nylander will have to heavier load to carry. I don't know. I think Matthew Knies maybe will have a bigger opportunity to play. But I think by losing Mitch Marner, your team will be better. You might not score as many points. You might not be as good in the regular season. You will be better in the playoffs. If you can replace him with even a guy like a Matt Zuccarello, that type of player, where he just knows how to win when it comes down to crunch time. Or I don't know, but it's not Mitch Marner. So yes, oddly as it sounds, they will be better next year. I think they will be in a better spot to win, even with Austin Matthews, even with his terrible leadership skills. Losing Tavares and Marner is a benefit for these guys. It stinks losing them for nothing. I should have traded them last year. Should have traded them at the deadline. Like I said, you're letting a young 28-year-old star walk in the prime of his career. You can pen him in, permanent marker for 100 points a year, and you get nothing for him. So that stings, but yeah, I don't know. I'm one of the few people who think these guys, well, no, probably not. I'm probably part of the majority now who thinks they'll be better without Marner on their team.
Yeah, I think you have to sacrifice the points and the standings and just, you're going to make the playoffs. You're going to be there. It's about Game 7. right? Like you can't build a roster thinking about this one particular scenario, but you have to keep that in mind, and you haven't done it. And you think
Yeah.
about what Marchand has done, and I think Zuccarello is a great example. The Matt Duchennes of the world, where like the going gets tough, you're going to have a guy that's reliable, and yeah, I think I kind of wonder too, like do Matthews and Marner make each other worse mentally? They're each other's crutches, right? And they're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of like a confirmation bias of like, man, you played great tonight, buddy. You know, like it's just like it. Maybe both of them are better without each other, even though maybe there's
Yeah.
fewer points happening, but they're just going to deliver, and they can both say he was the one holding me back and whatever. So there'll be some changes. I think the more the better, and this is still going to be a good team, but I don't really see a scenario where they can win. I just there's nothing here that makes me think that.
Yeah, but they'll make the playoffs. They
Sure.
100% will make the playoffs. You have Matthews, Nylander. You still have really good pieces. So just get there. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you figure out what you need throughout the season, and you try to fill holes. Look at what Corey Perry's doing at Edmonton.
Yeah.
He's playing great, and I know those guys don't grow on trees, but there's people out there. I don't want to go back to Chicago, but Ryan Donato, players like that who are just like lunch pail guys who can put up 30 goals if you put them in the right situation. And they just need to find guys like that, not guys like Mitch Marner.
How about Taylor Hall in Carolina? It's fitting great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's no longer the top line guy, but he's going to be very effective. And he does his floor is pretty high. Like he might not have a high ceiling anymore, but he's never going to cost you a game. So I think that's a great example. There's a lot of guys in St. Louis like that. So all right, so
Yeah, and
now
then you signed Taylor Hall for $3 million now. So they
yeah,
like Carolina did a great job getting him for a bargain, and you can slide him on the first line. He can play second, third line minutes. So yes, Toronto needs to obviously regroup, but I'm not selling on this team. If anything, I'm more optimistic about next year based on their goaltending and defense because they really proved that they were pretty good this season and wasn't the reason why they lost. The reason why they lost was the guys couldn't score. So, all right, moving on. We're in the conference finals, Tim. What are we doing?
yeah. So we're 4 teams left, and which is crazy that every single division winner, which is Toronto, Washington, Winnipeg, and Vegas, has been eliminated from the playoffs. The final 4 teams are the Canes and the Panthers in the East, the Stars and the Oilers in the West. And what's cool, and someone pointed this out on Twitter too, is the final four are going to feature the 3 teams that had the best in generating shots at 5-on-5. That's the Oilers, that's the Panthers, that's the Canes. And the fourth team, the Stars, added a huge offensive piece in Rantanen at the midseason deadline. So I think this is kind of overriding maybe a little bit, or at least opening the conversation about the whole defense winning championships thing. Because all 4 of these teams generate a ton of offense, a ton of shots on net, and they find the back of the net, and they have those superstars for the most part. And you're seeing that it's not about the back, building from the back out anymore. At least
Nah,
based on the 4 teams.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think offense plays a huge part in this, but you can't say that Carolina doesn't value defense. And you can't sit there and say that Dallas isn't a defensive minded team or the Panthers aren't responsible in the back end. Their mentality offensively is just throw everything at the net. Carolina's always been that way. They chuck everything at the net. And the same with the
Yeah.
Panthers. And just hope for bounces and rebounds and then muck it up in the crease. So, yes, I will concede that maybe people are, caring a little bit more in the offensive zone. But with these 4 teams, it's exciting. I think everybody wanted to see the Panthers back and the Oilers back and the Dallas Stars based on Rantanen. We knew whoever was going to win Colorado Dallas would inevitably make it to the Western Conference Finals. That's how good that series was. But doesn't it feel like and I hate to give Carolina this much flack because they played their hearts out. They played the Albany Devils in the first round, and they squeaked by them. And then they played the geriatric Washington Capitals with Carlson and Ovechkin, and they got by them. Doesn't it feel like there's 3 studs coming into the bar, and everybody's looking at them like, whoa, look at those dudes. They're pretty hot. And then there's the geek behind them. Like, who invited the nerd? And that's the Carolina Hurricanes, where it's like, what are you doing here? Which one doesn't belong here? It's you, Carolina Hurricanes. I am slowly starting to enjoy the Carolina Hurricanes. They've embraced this reputation. Boring hockey, no superstar. And now they're this ragtag group of people. Oh, yeah, Rantanen, you didn't want us? Fine. We're going to do it without you. We're going to play this style of hockey. We're going to embrace it. We're going to do the tidal wave after every win. Everybody thinks it's obnoxious, but if you're in Carolina, it's the best thing in the world. So I don't know. I'm kind of digging these Hurricanes. I think they're going to get absolutely waxed by the Florida Panthers, but you got to give them a little bit of credit. They're here. Just a little teeny tiny bit of credit. I think it's funny that there's these 3 stud teams that have superstar laden rosters and go all in, and then there's the Carolina Hurricanes that are just, we're here. Hi. Oh, hum. So I'm excited. They start, tomorrow? We got the first game between Florida and Carolina. Quick turnaround for the Panthers. They might be in trouble.
Yeah, it is, but I'm not worried about them. I am a little bit worried about Matthew Tkachuk. I wonder if there's some kind of injury there, because not only was he not scoring, but you didn't notice him a ton, and I know his ice time wasn't quite what it was last year, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But even if he doesn't deliver, we've already seen they can still win a series, and they're still an elite team. I think maybe the finals is where it might bite them a little bit more, but I like their chances. But we'll do that another time. Yeah, that first game is tomorrow night, and Wednesday is the first game between Dallas and Edmonton, and it's very exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, we appreciate everybody listening. We know it was a heavy Toronto episode, but gosh, they're just so exciting. It's going to be sad to see them gone, but incredible series coming up in the finals. We'll talk to everybody later this week. Cheers, everybody.